Good day everyone, this is group 3 and we'll be making a detailed video on essential elements of valid trust.
A trust is a relationship which arises whenever a person called a trustee is compelled in equity to hold property, whether real or personal, and whether by legal or equitable title, for the benefit of some person of whom the trustee may be one of them and who are termed central to the trust, or for some objects permitted by law, in such a way that the real benefit of the property accrues not to the trustee or to the beneficiaries or other objects of the trust. There are two essentials of a valid trust. We have capacity, and the three certainties, which are certainty of intention, certainty of subject matter, and certainty of objects.
Please go.
Capacity to create trust is the same as capacity to hold property. An infant lacks capacity to hold trust. Also, a lunatic cannot hold trust. Prior to the enactment of Married Women Property Act of 1882, married women lacked the legal capacity to create trust. However, by Section 6 of the Act, married women can now create trust of their properties.
The identity of words is implied because equity focuses rather on the intent rather than on substance or form. Now, this implies that words that are construed must be imperative and they must be expressly written, as equity would not consider the creation of trust in a word that is not implied or that is not expressly stated. So words that are construed must be imperative.
So, in the case of Monty versus Monty, the settlor transferred some property and made statements suggesting that they be put in trust for his family or for the benefit of other relatives. The issue was whether this pledge created a valid intention or was simply to make a gift or some moral obligation. So the issue in this case was whether the settlor had necessary intention to create a trust, and the court held that mere moral obligation or vague references to others benefiting from the trust do not constitute a valid intention to create a trust. So, for a trust to be valid, the language and conduct of the settlor must show a definitive and enforceable commitment to be able to hold the trust for the benefit of others.
Missouri Bank and Reno, where the testator left his will for his wife and stated that she would act justly in dividing the will for their children when no longer in use of it. The court held that the words cannot create trust and it was merely a moral obligation towards the wife to use the property as she deems it fit. Also, in the case of Ray Adams and Kensington Vestry, the court held that the words cannot create trust and is merely a moral obligation also towards the wife to use the property as she deems fit. In this case, the testator stated that the will was made in confidence that the wife would use the property in a way that the children will benefit from it after her lifetime and also in the will after she is dead.
The certainty of the subject matter. The property the testator is going to be giving out in the trust must be clearly identified in the document of the trust.
That is, the property to be bound by the trust must be explicitly clear and the property must be certain and clearly identifiable. That the property must be in existence at the time the trust is being created.
In the case of Boys versus Boys, where a testator wanted to give out 4 houses to his 2 daughters, the first daughter, which is Maria, there was the condition that Maria must first pick the house she wants first before Charlotte would be able to take the remaining of the 3 houses. But unfortunately, Maria died before she picked the house, so Charlotte could not take the remaining 3 houses. The court held that the trust failed as it was uncertain which house Maria would have picked, and so both properties were on a resulting trust to the testator.
Not the case of Boys and Boys, it's the case in Palmer and Simmons, where the settlor said she wanted to create trust for various people over her own properties. And now she mentioned that they should leave a bulk of her Red Berry estate onto her purported beneficiaries. The court by Article mentioned that because the court was too unsure or uncertain about which parts of the residual estate were meant to be left for the beneficiaries, the trust failed. And this is because she mentioned bulk. It was too unsure or uncertain for the court to know what it meant.
Horses versus Ripon is a substantial case in the English trust law, and this case is based on the certainty of subject matter. So in this case, the testator bequeathed all of his property to his wife with direct instruction that with the fear of God and with the love of the children in her care, she is to use the property for her own and their own spiritual and temporal goods in accordance to the circumstances of the church and the poor. So it can be seen in this case that the testator gave all of his property to his wife, but added vague instructions like with the love of God, with the fear of God and the love of the children in our care, and in accordance to the circumstances of the church and the poor. It can be seen here that there was no clear definition of what portion of the property was to go to the children, the poor, and the church. That is, the particular share to be taken by the church, the children, and the poor was uncertain. So therefore, the court held that for a trust to be valid, the subject matter, that is the property or the interest in the property to be held in trust, must be certain. Because this case lags that, the court held that there was no valid trust.
Third certainty is the certainty of objects. Here, the objects of the trust are the beneficiaries of the trust, and the beneficiaries must therefore be ascertainable, as seen in the case of Charles Ojo versus First Bank of Nigeria.